Long time. Shut you out, just trying to light it up.
Someone's got to. Hey, how's it going? She didn't make a mistake. Right. Last week was interesting.
I didn't mean to whisper, I apologize. Good morning and thank you for attending today. Welcome to the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office for our press conference this morning. We will now begin with Sheriff Eric Higgins to talk about Unlocked, the Netflix series. Sheriff Higgins.
Thank you. A lot of stuff up here, so I'll move my notes around. I want to talk to you about history, about how we got here. As you know, I spoke with everyone after the trailer dropped and gave all the media the opportunity to sit down with me and talk about how we got here. So this is kind of a recap. 2019, I was elected sheriff of Pulaski County, and one of the things that I said I was going to do was to bring a reentry program into the detention facility. I took office January 2019. By May of 2019, we had a reentry program in our facility. The reasons it's important to have that here is because 80% of the people who are booked into the county jail are released to our community. We can learn a lot from the Department of Corrections, Community Corrections, and how they do reentry. I believe we have to do it at a county level. Our program we started in 2019. You can view it as an experiment or as a pilot program. We started with the ladies in our facility. Since that time, we've expanded, and we include the men in our facility. And one thing we did, we moved these individuals into one unit to create a community of support, a community where they had support from not only the deputies working the unit, but also from the other detainees. Our reentry program as of today has a 4% recidivism rate. It works. Not everyone will volunteer to be in our reentry program. So how do we change the facility? When you look at the Pulaski County Detention Facility, when I took office, I looked at it. We have to address three things to improve the facility. We have to address the facility itself. What is it built for? What's the capacity? What's the security level in the facility? And we've addressed that. From when I took office, you had locks that detainees could pop the locks and come out of their units. We've gotten funds from the Quorum Court to replace all the locks, replace the control systems. We've installed over 250 cameras in the facility to try to make the facility more secure. We've installed fencing around the intake area because when this facility was built, the Sally Port area was too small compared to the number of agencies bringing people here. So we've addressed the facility physically. We've addressed the personnel here by increasing staffing levels and by increasing the training level for the staff, excuse me. And we also have to address the detainees in this facility. In law enforcement, we have to work with the community. The community on the street, when we're policing the street, you don't police it by just invoking what you think is correct. You have to work with the community. An effective law enforcement agency works with the community on the street. In the detention center, our community are the detainees in this facility, and we have to work with them. We have to address those individuals in the facility so we can have a safer facility. As I mentioned before, I didn't reach out to any company, any production company or Netflix. Lucky 8 reached out to me. They were aware of our reentry program and the success of our reentry program. And they were interested in showing something different, showing that a detention facility can operate differently. And we gave them opportunity to show that. If you've seen the series, if you've looked at it, there's two things you should have come out away from it. One, humanizing people in jail. You know, we may have an opinion about people who are incarcerated, but we have to treat them correctly. You know, we know that it impacts more than just the people in the facility, it impacts their family members. And oftentimes we may not be personally concerned about someone in jail until they're a family member that's passing through our facility. And so we have to be concerned about that. We have to be concerned about how do we create a safer facility? How do we create a community? And that's what this was about. Humanizing those who are in the facility and showing that you can create a community. When we were going in this direction, I want you to understand that this facility was built in 94 as a direct supervision facility, one of about 3 in the state, which means the deputy is in the unit, their desk is in the pod with the detainees. All other county facilities and all other state facilities are an indirect supervision facility. That means the deputy's on the outside of the unit, monitoring through cameras or through glass. And so as we look at this facility and recognize our staffing level and trying to address that, one of the things we looked at was, can we transform this facility into a indirect supervision facility, moving the deputy out of the unit. Now that's not out of the unit completely, that's out of the directly into the pod area, into the living area, but about 4 to 6 feet from the door, inside that the unit, in a room inside the unit, but not in the open area. So we were looking at doing that. So part of this experiment was moving the deputy out of the unit into this area, monitoring by cameras. We've installed over 250 cameras into this facility since I've taken office. And of course, there's still some blind spots that may be around. We will continue to try to add more cameras to this facility to make it a safer facility. We did not set aside jail standards. We still did our checks, our hourly checks. You're not going to see that on the Netflix series. You have to understand that the series records 8 weeks, but in each episode it's only about 43 minutes. So there's probably 1,000 hours of time that's not recorded. We did what we were supposed to do as far as securing the facility. As far as disciplinaries in the facility, we operated just like we would in any other unit. Internal disciplines that took place for violations of policy or violations of something that maybe would end up with a charge, a criminal charge. We didn't do that. Any criminal charges of the folks in the facility, but we did follow the same standard. And again, the Department of Corrections follows this same standard of internal disciplines. As you're aware, I've answered over 40 questions that the quorum court had. Then they provided some follow-up questions, and I think the 3 things that they were concerned about is one allegation that a person in the H unit had a rape charge, a sex charge on them. That person did have a rape charge on them at one time, but those charges appeared to be dropped. When we get our speed letter, which tells us what the bond is and what the charges are, we originally received a speed letter on the individual that had, I believe it was a $250,000 bond, and it included a rape charge. The very next day, we received another speed letter on the same person, on the same case, with a reduction in bond to $100,000, and the rape charge was not listed. This happened probably 2 or 3 months prior to the person being moved into H unit. There was a question about a PREA incident, or a allegation of a sexual assault in the facility. The individual that brought that to our attention while they were in H unit, the incident did not occur in H unit, it actually occurred several months prior, and the individual was explaining why they were trying to have something to protect themselves in the unit. We removed them from the unit, we did the investigation. Those allegations could not be sustained, but again, it did not occur in the unit, in H unit, where this experiment took place. The additional incident was, or the question was about having 2 people involved in the same case in H unit. We do have a practice. If we're notified by the prosecutor's office or the arresting agency that they would like individuals on the same case separated, held in 2 different units, we will comply. We do not make those decisions on our own. We are not involved in their cases, and therefore we won't arbitrarily make a decision to remove someone or keep people separate. That's a decision, and that's a request from the agency making the arrest, or from the prosecuting attorney's office. I think I've addressed those things. Question about, I think people had a question whether or not I thought this was a success, whether or not I thought this experiment worked. And I would say yes, it was a success. H unit is still operating with the doors open. What we have done, the only difference is we've put the deputy back in the unit at the request of the detainees in the unit, not for safety purposes, but for the deputy be a resource for the detainees. If the tablets aren't working right, if the phones aren't working, their code is not working to make the phone calls or what have you, or they have questions about their case, they can ask the deputy for information. What's happening with my bond, or what am I going to be bonded out? Just various questions that can come up. And so the deputy's in there as a resource. Now, things we've learned from this experiment is that having a deputy in the unit as a resource is beneficial to the detainees in the unit. We've learned that you can create a community. H unit is one of the safest units in the facility, only second to our reentry unit, which has a community. We created a community in those units. We have learned some things. We learned where they were, an area that they were using to create the soot, to make tattoo ink. That was something new for us. We did not realize they were using the toilet paper holder area to create the soot. We also learned that though we try to do a good job with our searches of what we call the action packer, the box that they may have the detainee have their supplies in, we learned that we need to find a different container. And we're in the process of looking at a different container that will limit the areas where someone can hide things. So we've learned some things from this. And we knew this from the beginning, that when you add additional cameras, cameras that you wouldn't normally have, we don't put cameras in all the cells, the sleeping areas of the detainees. We have some in our suicide rooms, but we don't have them everywhere. And we're finding that we still have areas in the unit where we have blind spots, and that we need to add more cameras to address those blind spots. So we've learned some things from this experiment. I think an important thing that we want to get, or wanted to have come out of this, is that we can do things differently. That we can create a community that's a safer community, not only for the deputies, but for the detainees. There are some people who were a little upset about seeing hooch being made or fights going on in a jail. That's unfortunate that you have those things occurring in a jail setting, but they do occur. And if we're going to take action to reduce those, then we have to look at what we're doing, how we're doing, and how can we do it better. And that's the things that we're doing. We know that if I create a community in the unit, you can't just have a stick. You got to provide some positive things in that unit. And when you do that, you can create a community. When you help these detainees understand and take some ownership in their area, then they can take steps, and they will take steps to improve their community. And if you've looked at the series, you will notice that majority of the people did the right thing from the beginning. And so you will have people who will challenge things. But I think you can create a true community in the facility, and we've done that. And we're looking at, we're in the process of looking at expanding to another unit, a larger unit, the same principle. And we'll take the things that we've learned from this experiment as we try to expand. It's a step-by-step process. We know that phone calls are important for the detainees to reach out to their family members. We know that contact is important to have to help them while they're in this facility. Regardless of what the charges are, my responsibility is for those individuals in this facility. And with 80% of the people booked in this county jail going home, being released from this facility, not going to prison, not going to federal prison or state prison, but coming home, it is our responsibility to try to increase the chances of them coming out and not reoffending. In other words, not coming out and not creating another victim in our community. It's about prevention. And that's what the sheriff's office is about preventing crime, doing the best we can to do that. We will make arrests, we will write tickets, we will also work with our youth in the community so that they don't get involved in the criminal justice system in a negative way, and we will work with those in our facility to try to assist them to come out and not reoffend. If they can learn that they can have a positive impact on their community in the jail, in a unit, then maybe they'll take with them when they walk out that they can have a positive impact on their home community, on their neighborhood, and the community as a whole. Do you have any questions for me?
What were the positives and the negatives, Sheriff, from the actual inhabitants inside Sublime H?
You're asking for the individuals?
Yes,
Well,
what were they saying to you? What about this experiment, the positives and the negatives?
So what they were saying that the positive is creating that community. They felt safer in there. And of course, when you're locked down for an extended period of time, that creates additional tension. So being out was a positive. We had individuals that they were asking about more programming. You know, if you may have seen that some of them started Bible studies, some of them tried to do some classes dealing with addiction, and how do we bring more programming into the unit. So that was a positive that they wanted that. Some of them left this unit and requested to go to our reentry program to get those programming. So it was a positive for them. And I think the negative during the experiment was not having the deputy in there as a resource. And that was one of the things that they really wanted, was to have that deputy back in there to be a resource to them.
Did you expect the kind of backlash that you received from Placer County government and the legislators?
I was disappointed in that. With hope that we focus on the positive, on what we're doing and how it truly transforms our facility, can do that. But I will say that, I have offered to the county, people in county government, to come see what we do. We invite them to everything we do. Before the last primary election, we had an open house here, invited all people holding office in county government, state government, that their area was Pulaski County. We invited them to come. We invited those who were elected or who were running for office to also come and tour the facility and see what we're doing. Several people did come, but not everyone, and not some of the folks that have a negative opinion about what we're doing.
Like who?
I'll let you ask them, and they can relate whether or not they came or not. I don't have a list in front of me, but I will say that you can ask those people who received the invitation whether or not they came.
Along those lines, is there anything you would have done differently apart from just having a deputy in the room?
No, I think we did it the right way. I think we learned some things from the experience that I mentioned. Again, if we're trying to move toward an indirect supervision facility like most state facilities and most county jails, how do you do that? How do you move the deputy out? So part of that was moving the deputy out of the unit. Can we transform the facility to a indirect supervision facility? It wasn't built that way. It was built to be direct supervision, but that's not the direction corrections are building their facilities now. So I think it was good moving them out. I think we had monitors up for the deputy to watch the cameras. We need more cameras, obviously. We're seeing that.
There's one inmate who had filed a lawsuit against you and the Lucky 8 producer. Have you responded to that inmate, and has any deal been made on that?
I'm not going to discuss any lawsuits. Thank you.
Before the show began, you guys had to have had an understanding that the TV cameras were probably going to catch things that your security cameras don't. Like you said, there's blind spots. Some of that may have been illegal activity or at least violations of the jail's rules. What was the agreement that you had with Lucky 8 about how that would be handled? Do you have any access to the film that they shot before you got to preview the episodes?
So if there was any issues that created problems for safety issues, they would let us know. And we did take action on issues that occurred in the facility. A lot more people were moved out that you didn't see. Again, you're only looking at a small percentage of what occurred in the unit. And there was some movement even before the production started, that as we filled the unit, had people in the unit, we were still doing our searches, we were still doing our checks, and there were times when people were moved out even before that started. So we had an understanding about safety was the most important thing in the facility. We weren't going to compromise our safety. Every time we wanted to do a come in and do a sweep, we did the sweep. That may not made it in the production, but we didn't modify what we did because the safety was important in the facility. And the violations that we saw, we took the same actions that we would do in any other unit. And that was important to me because I did not want to punish someone more than I would someone in our unit or S or any other unit doing the same policy violation as they did in H, because it's reported in a different fashion. We made sure that we provided the same amount of discipline, the same format of discipline, whether it was putting them on lockdown, moving them to another unit, or any other discipline, whether it's taking commissary away, those things like that. If it was such a severe case that we would normally file criminal charges, then we would have done that, file criminal charges. The only case we had where we initiated criminal charges was during one of our sweeps. Something tested positive, I think, for cocaine, but it was actually a prescription drug that the person had. It was a false positive. We initially were moving forward to charge the person, but we dropped those charges because it was that person's prescription medication. It was not the contraband.
So when they brought a safety concern to you, did they give you a chance to see what they had filmed and that safety concern, or they just revealed something?
They let us know what was going on as far as the production when they were getting ready to before they released the series. We had an opportunity to sit down and look at all the film and look at that what they had that recorded, but we addressed those issues as they occurred. And I'll point out that This is a production, so the timeline may not be exact as a timeline that things occurred.
So you say that it's a reentry program type thing where they go back into society, but we had some concerns as to what was the reasoning behind letting inmates that have life sentences participate? And what would you say to those family members who were upset?
Well, I would say this. Part of this experiment is looking at this facility, taking a typical unit in this facility. Any given time, we'll have 50 individuals charged with murder, and they're spread out this facility. We will have aggravated assault charges throughout this facility. And if it's gonna work, I can have a sterile unit and have a program work. But if I'm gonna change the entire facility, then I need to know it's gonna work with people in the unit who may be involved in different gangs, older, younger, serious charges, from murder to aggravated assault. You will have those things. This was about having a typical unit in the Pulaski County Regional Detention Facility, and we're going to have those type of people in this facility. As far as family members, when a homicide, when it occurs, when you lose a family member, that is tragic. And those things happen, unfortunately. And whether they see their loved one on camera being walked to court or any other way, it's traumatic to them, and we understand that. But I also have a responsibility for the people in this facility, and they have family members as well, and people are wanting them to be treated properly. There are jail standards. They're going to have recreation. They're going to have those things. We are not here to punish everyone. We're here to hold people. This is a detention center. The most I can hold somebody is a year in here. The majority of people in this facility are, regardless of what the charges are innocent until proven guilty. And even when they are found guilty, I still have a responsibility of how I treat them in this facility. And our goal is that, that some of these people will learn from their mistakes and that they'll be a better person, whether they're going to Department of Correction for life or going to federal prison or going home and it's going to be your neighbor. How do we try to instill some things in them? Some people say, why does the county jail have anything to do with reentry? Again, we have everything to do with reentry. And again, in this unit, it's not our reentry unit. This unit is about creating a safer environment within the facility, and then looking at what can we do, how can we continue to step forward to create a safer facility and learning from our experience.
Did that $60,000 check surprise you, and did you inform anyone from the county that it was coming?
As far as the check, that was up to the production company. They had no obligation to do that. I explained that to them. That's something they wanted to do, and they said they were going to issue a check. And I informed them if they did, they need to go to the Pulaski County government, not to the sheriff's office. And I explained to them the process. And so when they sent the check to us, we sent it downtown to the comptroller's office, where it would have to go. If the county wanted to receive the check, it would go into general funds. And that's my understanding. Well, the judge I got a copy of his letter sending it back to the production company.
Did you tell anyone while you were having those discussions ahead of time, or just whenever you sort of sent the check along their way?
Just when I sent the check, because they had no obligation to do it. And I'm not going to let them know let the county know there's a $60,000 check coming and it doesn't come. That was all up to them whether they want to do that or not. So it wasn't an issue until they sent the check to the county.
Speaking of the check, did you or any of your nonprofits receive any money from Lucky 8 Productions?
No,
None at all?
no. Yeah.
Following up on the check thing, the Representative Berry made a comment, asking whether, about another set of 21-inch chrome rims, apparently referencing an audit that was done a couple years ago. Can you explain what was actually done to the existing vehicle, when it was modified, just to kind of clarify that issue?
So that vehicle is assigned to our junior deputy program, and we've had it wrapped, and I think it looks pretty good.
Turning back to victims' families, do you think this impacts their sense of justice, having film production come around and put on television?
I can't answer that question for them. You have to ask them about that.
You say that Lucky was not obligated to send this check, but the $1,000 a day rate to offset the cost of filming is mentioned in the agreement that you sent. Is that not some sort of obligation?
There was no obligation for them to do that. That's something that they wanted to put in the agreement that they wanted to do. And I've told them from the beginning that they did not have the obligation to do that. It was up to them, and they said that that's what they would generally do if they filmed anywhere, and that was something they wanted to do.
But
Yeah.
once you all both signed that agreement, you're obligated to what you're in, they're obligated to what they're in, right?
This was, I view this as a memorandum of understanding. What my concerns were in this production was that we had an opportunity to view the video, that they understood what the purpose of this was. And again, I will emphasize that the purpose of this was to humanize people in the facility and help people understand that you can transform a unit by creating a community. People will rise up to your expectation, and I think the people did that. So it was up to Lucky 8 Production, if they wanted to do that, that was something that they wanted to do.
Speaking of humanizing, the detainees in there, how does it make you feel to hear a lot of lawmakers say they never want to see something like this happen again?
That's their opinion. Some people have a strong opinion about what detention should be. Some people have a strong opinion about what law enforcement should be. And we cannot continue to do the same thing that we've always done and expect a different result. We are going to continue to move forward with this organization. We're going to continue to move forward how we police the street, how we try to create community, and how we do the job, how we develop partnerships with different organizations to provide services to our community, whether it's from Advance Auto giving us gift cards to hand out to people when we stop someone for a tail light out, to handing out food, 3 days worth of non-perishable food when we come across people who have a food need. And we're going to continue to do those things in our community, and we're going to continue to move forward in this detention center to address the community that are here. It's one thing that we have to understand is that just like in law enforcement, when we go out to the community, we can't, as law enforcement, you can't just go out there and police how you think you should police. You have to talk and build relationships with your community to ensure that you are able to police the community in partnership with them. In a detention setting, our community that we're serving, however you want to look at it, are detainees. And sometimes when you listen to them, you can create a better environment within the facility. And that's what we're doing. That's what I've learned in my experience. Over 30 years experience in law enforcement. My experience with volunteering with a reentry program, talking to people who are coming out, who are incarcerated, who are coming to the community, what they need. They need a community within the facility. They need support not only from volunteers coming in and staff, but also from each other. And when you create that community, you create a safer environment. And we've learned that. I've learned that from working in that area, and I've learned that during my experience as sheriff and having a reentry program since 2019. And when you look at our reentry program, you'll see that because we create a community, it changes the dynamics in that unit, It changes the attitude of the people coming into the unit. They know it's different when they walk in. And if you can create that environment throughout the facility, you create a safer facility for the detainees, however you feel about it, whatever the charges are. We're responsible for them. But we create a safer environment for them, and we create a safer environment for the deputies. I mean, understand, with direct supervision, I have one deputy in the unit with 40 to 80 individuals or more. And by all means, we want a safe environment, which means those detainees need to know that they have value, that people respect them, and they care about their well-being. If you don't have that, then you have chaos in the unit. And so we're trying to create a safer unit, and it takes time. It's step by step. We know from our experience that creating culture works. That's why our reentry unit is successful. And we know from this experience that we can create a safer unit pod by pod. We can do that if we invest in it and do it correctly. And that's what we're doing. Continue to move forward.
So back to the legislature, why end the questioning at the legislature and say you're not going to answer any more questions, and then a week later have a media press conference?
Well, first of all, I've had several requests from the media to asking, do I think it's successful? And we were planning this, but the committee made a request of me to come to ask me to come to them. I asked them that they had questions. They refused to provide me any questions, but if anyone paid attention, they had questions. And when I saw, and I stayed there and answered their questions until they got so disrespectful that I felt it was necessary to end it. And so I wanted to still come, like I had planned, to talk to the media. Again, when the trailer dropped and I came back in town, we had a meeting. And we had a media day. And I allowed everyone who showed up to spend as much time as they wanted to ask the questions that they had. And I addressed all those questions. Then, the next step was after the production was released, after everyone's had a chance to view it, the questions was, do I think it was successful? And so I wanted to meet with you to answer that question. And yes, I do think it was successful. We can do this, and we're planning moving forward with the next unit, a larger unit. So it will take a little bit more time to expand to that unit, but we're in the process of planning that expansion. We learned things about the importance of phone calls. Some of you may not know this, but since the pandemic, the company that provides our video visitation had been providing 30 minutes of free video visitation every week for all the detainees in the facility. And we did that during the pandemic when we had to shut everything down, and they continued that. And so the phone service company is agreeing, and we're trying to work out the details of that, to provide a certain number of minutes per detainee in this facility. I think it's 15 minutes per week. 15 minutes per week for those detainees. Everyone in the facility make phone calls to talk to their attorney, to talk to their family members. So we are moving forward in providing a service, continued service to our community, outside community, and inside community in our facility.
With this experiment, if you had to start all this over again, it was presented to you the way it was, is there anything that you would have changed in the way that you participated, did, or didn't answer questions, or would there be any way that you would have changed what happened?
No, if you're talking about the production company, because they approached me about what we were doing and what was the next step in what we were doing. And the next step was trying to create a community, try to in a normal facility, in a normal unit, not our reentry unit. Because in our reentry unit, you have to volunteer to be in it, and then we interview you to see if you qualify to go into that unit. So not everybody's going to go into the reentry program. Not everybody's going to want to be in the reentry program. So the next step to creating trying to continue moving forward, creating a safe facility, is taking a typical unit. And so what we're doing is what was recorded. And so I wasn't interested in just doing a production for production's sake. What I was interested in is, how do we transform this facility? Can we do something that we can sustain and replicate? And we've shown that we can sustain it. The doors are still unlocked. It's still operating. It's still a safe unit, and it can be replicated. And so we're moving in that direction. So as far as what was produced, I would say I'd do the same thing.
Was this in any way, to your knowledge, from the production company's viewpoint, scripted in any way, or did they allow this just to happen organically?
As far as they allowed it to happen organically. I mean, they were in the unit, they were talking to the detainees that were in there. And so I would say what you saw was what goes on in a jail. And I will also say what you saw, the transformation you saw, is what I know can occur. Through our reentry program, through my experience of working with reentry, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for the light bulb to come on, for somebody to really think I can do something different. Maybe I can trust these people around me. Or is the sheriff serious about this? Is this staff really serious? They really care about us? It takes about 6 to 8 weeks for it to happen. Our reentry program, our academy, is 12 weeks. And it's 12 weeks for a reason, because it takes about 6 weeks for the light bulb to come on for some people. So I wasn't surprised about the transformation that occurred. I expected to see the transformation at the end. And I think the production company just showed what my experience working in reentry over the years, what it has shown me. And I think the production company just revealed it to everyone else.
You said a couple of times that you felt like it was a success. Was there an objective metric, just more of a, oh, we felt like it was a success and we felt good about it?
So we monitored the activity in the unit, whether or not the disciplinaries in the unit, whether or not we, how many fights we had, how many issues of not following the rules in the facility, measuring that. And during the production, we were continually comparing it to other units in the facility. So we know that it was safer. And that's how we know it works. And then you see the transformation of the people when not only being safer, but also individuals in the unit showing some concern for the other people in the unit. I mean, the reality of it, you have 40-something people who didn't ask to live together. And if anybody has sent kids to college or went to college and you had roommates, sometimes it didn't work out as you thought it would. And so you have these individuals placed in this unit, and they have to learn to work together for the betterment of the unit, and not just concerned with self, but concerned with the community that we created there.
Instead of the legislators that didn't see film and was more concerned with putting on a show than getting answers, I thought that it was, as a citizen that I live in this particular area, I was really offended, because I knew that I went to that hearing just so I could see what your answers were going to be. But to hear all of your antics, and the gentleman that was walking around the room, it was really disturbing to see so many people there that were concerned. A reaction from the legislators that was so disrespectful that we didn't gain anything. And when he asked the question about why you called it that, and I appreciate that. I didn't know, I've never been arrested, so I hadn't been in jail. But I met you and some of your staff, and I was impressed with the reentry program. Thank you. Because I know where your heart is. And I think that if state government would come out here and help you, I think it would be a lot better if our government would come out and try to find ways, instead of sending that check back, they should have kept that check. If they didn't want, they could have sent it to me, I would take it. But I think it's more important that we get things done, that we do it in a positive way. Because I don't think anything that you try to do is negative. I think it's all positive effort to try to make a change, a difference in our community. Pulaski County has a lot of issues. I learned that, but I'm not a politician. I'm just a regular citizen in this area, but I'm concerned. And I'm really concerned about how our government reacts and acts with each other. And to see that here go the way that it did was very disappointing, very disheartening. And I know we can do better. I think we are better than that. And I'm here today because I wanted to just hear what he asked his questions. He prompted another question. My question is, has our local government come out and tried to do anything other than criticize, has the governor's office or anyone else that can help in this particular area, come out and done anything to try to help the progress that you're trying to create, to continue or to kind of build?
The answer to that is no. And you know, one thing that concerns me is that, well, I appreciate all the attention. I realize it ended up on Netflix and it brought a lot of attention. But you know, for the last 2 years, I've been trying to get the mental health services we need in the jail. And I've talked to the media about that. I've talked to the quorum court members about that. And it hasn't gained any traction. In 2022, I asked to use Recovery Act money to increase the mental health services that we recognize that we need in the facility. And I was told no. Some quorum court members said they didn't want to spend that money on people who weren't their constituents, or they didn't want to spend one-time funds. And then when I went back last year, after the county judge had signed the contract for increasing mental health services in the facility, and the comptroller told them, the quorum court, they had the money, all they had to do was allocate the money for it. They chose not to. And you can look at that record and look and see how that was done. And if we're going to address this detention facility, we're going to address the issues here, we also have to address mental health services in the facility. You know, there's so much we want to do. I agree with the crisis stabilization unit. We need to support that 100%. But we need that services in this facility. It's a 1,210 bed facility. We have about 1,260 something people in the facility today, maybe more than that. I have 4 mental health professionals. This is a transient population. 14,000 people were booked into our facility last year. It's a 1,210 bed facility, but over 14,000 were booked in. A lot of them have mental health issues. Some of them have dual diagnosis of mental health and drug addiction. Some don't know what they're dealing with. And we have to provide the service to them. If they're not taking their medication for their heart condition, we have to provide that. We have to look at their physical and mental condition. And this has been an issue. And the majority of the quorum court members will not address this. And so if you really care about these people in the facility, provide the services that they need. If you care about our staff that's in this facility, and they're having to deal with these individuals, and not all of them are violent, but it can come to some of that. Our deputies see the needs, and they don't have a resource to reach out to for mental health because we don't have enough staff. So I wish they would truly care about the needs in this facility. And when they talk about the increase in funding, I still take about 47% of the county budget from 2018 to now. So we're still taking the same amount of resources. Law enforcement is expensive. When we do our job right, we create a safer community. And when you have a safer community, we have a reduction in crime and reduction in perception of crime in your community. A community lends itself to economic development. When you have more economic development, then you have increase in jobs and livable wages, which increases the revenue, creates a safer community for all of us. And we have to address that. And law enforcement is one of the ways that we do that, whether it's trying to prevent crime, whether it's making arrests, or whether it's trying to have people who are in our facility to not come out and create another victim in our community. It's a holistic approach to what we're doing. And I do need the quorum court's support in this area, especially when you have the funds. Provide the mental health services that we need.
One last question, Sheriff. I think you give me a little bit too much credit. I've probably been harder on you than anybody in this room. But, so how do you balance that? How do you balance that extreme?
So I would balance it with they are in jail and they don't have freedom. And I would guess, even in your experience, you're probably not itching to spend another 50-something days in a jail. But these are human beings.
Yes.
And we have a responsibility to respect their constitutional rights. The criminal justice system, our prison system, it's supposed to be based on reform. Locking somebody down and putting them in a cell by themselves or with somebody for 23 hours or 23 days, whatever you want to do to punish them, is not going to transform them. It's going to create more problems. And then if you ever talk to anybody who's been locked in a cell for a while, it affects you, and it affects you mentally. And so we have a responsibility. Hold them accountable. If you've done something wrong, I'm going to hold you accountable. You don't have the freedom. You're incarcerated. But while you're here, what can we do to rehabilitate you? Because we don't understand the trauma that people have gone through. Is the condition of the person in this facility, is it based on a mental health issue? Is it based on a drug addiction issue that started when you were 6 years old? Is it based on abuse and trauma? I don't know the situation that brings people into this facility. But I have a responsibility while they're here to try to care for them. And that, you may not like that word. But it's my responsibility while they're here. If they have a heart condition, they have high blood pressure, it is my responsibility to make sure they get the medication, regardless of whether they took it any other time, whether or not they've ever been to the doctor. And they come see us, they come into our facility, and our physician realizes that they have a medical condition that needs to be treated. If they have cancer, we're going to deal with that. If they need to go to the hospital, we're going to transport them to the hospital, and we're going to sit there with them until a court releases them or the hospital releases them and brings them back home. We're going to care for people who are in this facility who may have been injured and who are paralyzed, but they're not released by the court. We're going to care for them while they're here. That's our responsibility. And it also includes the mental health responsibility for them. We're going to do our job as best we can. And I can't focus on their charge. They may be charged with some serious things, and they're going to be held accountable for that if they're found guilty. But we have a responsibility while they're here to care for their mental health, to care for their physical condition, and try to rehabilitate. Not everybody's going to be rehabilitated, but we can try.
Do you have any alibis in the quorum court or in the state officials that are chastising you? Have you seen any bright spots to somebody that you think is actually hearing you?
I think there's some people. I think on quorum court, Ms. Blackwood is definitely someone who hears what's going on, and she's an independent thinker. She's not going to be someone just going to do what I say and what I ask for, because she's told me no on a lot of things. But she's an independent thinker, and I think that's needed more in the quorum court. You have some people who support some of the things we do. I think as far as legislators, I think there are people who agree with what we're doing and support what we're doing, recognize that the criminal justice system needs a change. And I'm not saying every sheriff's office or every detention facility is doing it the wrong way. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have to look at what we're doing, look at the purpose of what we're doing, and then see how can we do it better. We know that there's a high incarceration rate in this state, in this nation. county jails are receiving people. Why do I want to wait for somebody to spend 15 years in prison and try to rehabilitate them? Why not do it now when 80% of the people that are booked in this facility are going to go home? Do we want them to go home and create another victim in our community and eventually go to prison? Or do we want to try to have a transformation now? And we're not going to reach everybody, we understand that. But we do need to create a community, create a culture where rehabilitation can take place.
About halfway through the show, there's a major moment where there's a unit-wide lockdown, and the show makes it look like multiple instances of people who were found in different cells. FOI disciplinary documents kind of suggest that those maybe were discovered on different days, which gets to what you were saying about the timeline of the show. But can you give us an idea of how often, if at all, these entire unit lockdowns are used as a punishment in all the units, not just HVAC?
Well, I can't give you a specific time. It's based on what's going on in the unit. It's based on what the level of disruption in the unit. If we find weapons in the unit, then we're going to put it on lockdown, and then we're going to search the units. And we're going to go cell by cell and search. So safety is the most important thing in this facility. It is a jail, and we need it to be safe. And so we will use a lockdown periodically. So I can't give you a specific, how many times we do it, but it is based on the activity in each unit.
But it's something that does happen.
Oh yeah. It definitely happens. We'll do a lockdown, and we'll send our search unit in to search everyone and search every cell, every piece of paper, and even with that, sometimes we miss things. But we also have like I say, taken steps to try to secure the facility by purchasing these body scanners, similar to what you have go to the airport. And the quorum court has provided a lot of resources to me, and I commend them for that. Whether they agree with everything I'm doing, they have provided some resources to me, and I'm thankful for that, for the body scanners to our mattress scanners to try to limit the contraband that comes into the facility. Again, we're not perfect, and so we still have those issues.
A lot of the talk during the legislators are wondering why they didn't hear about it earlier, like the judge didn't know about it until the trailer came out. Some people said NDA, secrecy. With you saying you were disappointed with the reaction and you thought it was a success, why not talk about it more before that trailer?
I would say this. I've always invited the quorum court and the county judge to come see what we do. I didn't go to them and say, hey, I'm going to start a reentry program. I just did it. And I've invited them to come see what we do. They choose not to come. So I can't change that aspect of it. We're going to run the sheriff's office. We're going to move forward. They have opportunities to see what we do. And some of the biggest resistors won't even walk in this building. So that's my response to them. That we're open, and they can come see what we do. I invite them to do ride-alongs. I invite them to tour the jail, come see what we do. And that invitation did not stop during production. Communication is a two-way street. And there's a lot of things that go on that I'm unaware of that impact the sheriff's office. But I'm not informed either.
So now that the deputies are back in H block by request, does that still constitute indirect supervision?
So it doesn't constitute indirect supervision. We're back to direct supervision. Now what we are looking at doing, because again, I've got 60 vacancies or more in the detention center. This is not somewhere, most people who get in law enforcement don't want to work in a jail setting. The Department of Corrections struggles to try to fill positions. Every sheriff's office struggles to try to fill positions. But with the size of our facility, we're the probably the fourth largest detention facility in the state, and that includes state facilities. I believe that as I was looking toward doing indirect supervision, and I've seen from the experiment there's some benefits to having the deputy in. What we're looking at doing now is to can we move forward with 2 deputies in a unit? Is that going to be easier? Because there's a lot of work when you're running that unit. Can we move to 2 deputies a unit? And so we're in the process of trying to figure that out. We just graduated 18 deputies in our detention side. And what happens is we hire people, but then they leave. They stay less than 2 years. And then our senior people end up leaving because of the amount of overtime they're having to work. And so as we evaluate our facility, we evaluate looking at, I mentioned to you before, looking at our personnel. You know, since I've been here, we've gone from a 40-hour training for our detention deputies to an 8-week training for them and a 4-week field training officer program. But even with all that, we're still we're having a hard time retaining people because we compete against every other agency around here. And so one of the ways that we're looking toward trying to address the retention is to add a second deputy into each of the units that we have, 80 to 100 people in a unit, so that we can see if that will have a positive impact in our retention of staffing.
Is that sustainable with the level of staffing you have right now?
It's going to be difficult, and we're looking at targeting certain units that have a high population, and starting with those to see what the impact we have. Because you see, what we do here is we're always assessing, and we're trying things. If it works, then we can move forward. If it doesn't work, then we try something else. We realize there's benefits to having the deputy in the unit. Structurally, for this facility, it's not built for indirect supervision. I do need more beds in this facility. You can talk to most law enforcement officers in Pulaski County, and they'll tell you that there's some people they wish we would hold that we can't hold because we're overpopulated. And so we're turning people away at the door. We're citing them out. We need more bed space, and that's an issue. This facility is over 30 years old. We're having structural issues with this facility. And this is the room you're in now is part of the old jail. You may have noticed when you walked in, there's some caution cones out there because there's some issues going on, not only on this side, but the rest of the facility. And so that's something that's going to have to be addressed, and I think we're going to have to add more bed space. I think we need to add more classroom spaces for our reentry program. We're topped out on our classroom spaces, and being able to bring more services into the facility to assist people to come out and be successful and not reoffend. And again, what we do is working. We have about a 5% recidivism rate for our reentry unit. You can look at the recidivism rate for the state. It's running about 48%. So I think we have to continue to look and move forward and try things that can work.
The older units that don't have doors and are run on an indirect supervision basis, was there ever a request from those units to bring the deputies back in, or was that something that surprised you after?
No, it's the structure of the unit. If you look at A and B units, you have 2 sides, and the way it's built, the deputy station is built in the middle of it. It's a separate area. It's the way the building is built. If I were going to do direct supervision in there, I'd need 2 deputies, one on each side of the unit, and each side is a 40-bed unit. So it's the way the facility was built, and because there's no bathroom inside the individual units, that the jail standard, before my time, the doors were taken off those units. But it is a unit that we look at as an upper tier unit, because that's something we were doing prior to the pandemic. Based on behavior, you had certain benefits in a unit, and we had implemented that prior to the pandemic, and it was successful, and it modified behavior because you had certain benefits in the unit, whether it's you can buy a radio on commissary and headphones, things like that. And so we had moved forward in that area. When I took office, we had replaced a lot of the TVs that were in the units, the big box TVs. We replaced them with up-to-date TVs, and in the upper tier units we put larger TVs, and that's just in the TV in the common area, not individual cells. It's in the common area. And so we were doing those things, and we know that worked. What we ran into was we had more people that qualified to be in the upper tier units than we had space for. So just let you know that what we're doing today is learning from what we've been doing personally since before I became sheriff, and then since I became sheriff, what we've learned in the facility and what we're doing in the facility. So we're in the process. We've created additional upper tier units. So A and B unit, which is no doors, those are upper tier units based on behavior.
You talked about how some deputies prefer the indirect supervision because it feels safer to them. You talked about eventually, if able, wanting to get 2 deputies in these units. Have you had concerns from deputies, especially in H unit, where you've got a deputy in the unit with open doors, about safety?
No, because it's based on behavior. The deputies are following. They know what the rules are. They do an orientation when they come into the facility. They are following the rules in the unit. When there's if something happens in the facility and there needs to be every detainee needs to go into their room, they're following those instructions. And we continue to monitor our units. We continue to look at the disciplinaries in the units. So it's not a safety concern with the facility, with the doors being open.
What's preventing y'all from getting that second unit, like H unit, open, since like the experiment happened a year ago? What sort of things have you had to do and still need to do?
So one of the issues is population. Because at one point we were averaging 1330 in the facility, and we're a 1,210 bed facility. So when you're overpopulated, you're having to push more people around into the unit. So we have what we call you have bunks, but we also have these portable, what they call them canoes, but it's where you can put a mattress in. And so we're having to have people not only in the unit, in the individual cells, we're having to put people put these bunks or on the floor in the common area. So when you have that many people, it creates some issues of trying to have space for everyone. So that's one of the issues we're dealing with. And then we have our staffing level is an issue. And again, we've had 18 graduate. As soon as they finish their training, then we'll be able to move forward with opening up this unit. And like I say, we will have a process. We'll do the same thing we did with with H unit. We'll go in and talk to them about the expectations for them in the unit. And if they don't want to be in the unit with the doors unlocked, we'll transfer them to another unit. So we'll go through the same process that we went through in the H unit with this one. It's a larger unit, so we just want to be sure that we follow all the steps we need to follow, dot all our I's and cross our T's to make sure it's safe. Because the most important thing is the safety of the unit.
Can you just put like a number on H unit compared to like this one? How many roughly?
Are in the unit?
Yeah, like detainees that would be in that unit.
So H unit, I think it holds up to 46 in that unit.
And this new one would?
It's 80. Is it right? 79. Yeah. And in between time, we've done like the A and B units, the 2 sides of each of those units. That's another. There's a 40 on each side.
Which unit is it that you're planning on expanding out to?
I'm sorry?
Which unit is it that you're planning on expanding out to?
Is it Q? Any other questions? All right. I do appreciate your time, appreciate you coming out and giving me the opportunity to answer your questions. So, thank you.